We have to explain why you are not masculine already. Because this is a new concept for men to be raised and not turn into men. Legally, you might be a man, but you're not. The majority of men are not men, they're guys. This isn't manhood, this is guyhood. For some reason, I always have this level of hatred. Yeah, guys are weak. But then I started to ask myself why. And I realized it's not necessarily a guy's fault that he's weak and he's feminine. Now, of course, as men, we should take responsibility for our actions. But if you've been raised in a certain way which has led you to this point, is it really your fault, or is there an enemy at hand? And forgive me for sounding crazy, but there is an enemy, and there is a war on masculinity. There absolutely is a war on masculinity and testosterone. From the moment of birth, you are conditioned. You are conditioned to be weak and feminine and submissive. You enter the school system as a legal requirement. And what's very interesting is our perception of school, it has to be a little bit positive because, education's really important. But you don't really learn that much in school. You aren't taught important things that you actually need to be a good, functioning human being. All of school is just a big act of conditioning for you to be submissive and to follow the instructions of the authority figure so that as soon as you turn 18 or whatever age it is in your country, you're ready to enter the workforce as a submissive pawn in the game of like some big corporation. You've got to either love or hate what I'm saying here. And whether you agree with it or not, you feel the consequences of it. You are not even a quarter of the man that your great-grandfather was. You have less than a third of his testosterone. When you want to have children, you will struggle. Your sperm count is at an all-time low. Your testosterone is at an all-time low. So many random shit. There's studies which literally show that a man's hand grip for a handshake is the weakest they've ever found through the history of this has been like a longitudinal study. Researchers have literally been studying the strength of a man's handshake grip for a long time, and this is the weakest handshake grip that we have. Little fucking limp handshake, motherfucker. This is what we've been reduced to. Men aren't really needed anymore. Strong men aren't needed. We live in times of abundance and resource, and even in developing countries, you're somewhat relatively safe. Now, on the other hand, at times of chaos, at times of necessity, strong men rise. Everyone needs them. Everyone looks to them. Day to day, let's say we go to some big metropolitan, liberal, I don't know these words, right? I'm not into politics or some shit. But you can imagine the kind of person, the people I'm talking about who are they've dyed their hair color. They say you're using the wrong pronouns and stuff. Do you know what I mean? If you go to a university that's filled with these kinds of people, and you're a strong man, a man with high levels of testosterone, more like an alpha male kind of character, they're not going to respect you. Yeah, he's a misogynist. They'll say these things about you, he's weak and he's a sexist and let's cancel him and shit, right? You're not needed. Let's just imagine a scenario in which you are needed. You're in the same situation, the same environment. An enemy walks in, a gunman walks in, a threat occurs. Who's everyone's eyes gonna dart to solve the problem? The big, strong man. You see, you aren't needed until you are. And at that point, people are expecting you to do the work. And this isn't even to say the raw subconscious attraction from women. Now, women generally in Western countries, they are quite depolarized now. They bring in quite a lot of masculine traits, and we'll discuss this in detail soon. They bring in masculine traits because they have to. They're pushed into the education system just like you are. They're fed this sort of narrative of the you go girl, boss girl mentality. And so they're quite masculine. But even then, a woman's raw subconscious primal sexual attraction will always be for the masculine man. And so whilst you've been conditioned to be, don't be masculine, don't be strong, don't be a misogynist, don't be dominant, don't be, patriarchal. You've been conditioned to be more and more feminine. And you've been told, this is good. Be a good boy, be a good boy. The women that you want are fucking a guy who's way over here. You failed this test. Do you understand that this was all a test? Do you understand that the little boys who were raised with good, strong father figures, these little boys who naturally just had higher levels of testosterone, they were amused by this test. You could probably imagine one of those boys right now. Imagine a boy in primary school or high school that the teacher told him to be more feminine, sit down and be quiet. He almost laughed at her, and he was quite disruptive. Now, of course, this boy's probably a little bit stupid and he's probably broke in jail or something right now. But that was a boy, a male, a man who didn't fail this test. You almost had to be this disruptive boy who probably had autism or ADHD. One of those disruptive boys who always got into trouble and always laughed and swore at the teacher and stuff. He didn't succumb to the pressure of acting more feminine. He found that silly. We listened to those words of advice from perhaps well-meaning authority figures, teachers, the media, and we fell for that test. We fell for the test of giving up our masculinity for thinking, everyone's telling me to be more feminine. Think about the media, think about the conditioning, the brainwashing that you've been into. If you think about the shows that you used to watch or the movies that you see nowadays, what do you see? Generally, if it's a show or a movie about a family, generally, the wife is this strong, really strong, resourceful woman. She not only looks after the kids, but she also works, and she even looks after the husband. And the husband, the father, is a bumbling idiot This is how men and fathers are portrayed in the media. The husband and the father is always like an idiot. He's always just feminine, he's thinking about the woman and stuff, he always keeps making these mistakes, and then the super mom comes in and she'll fix the day. And then sometimes, just sometimes, you can probably visualize this right now, sometimes the media, in movies and TV shows and cartoons and all this shit that's literally conditioning your brain, sometimes they will show a strong, masculine father figure, but under what light will they show him? Well, he's patriarchal, and he's gross. And he's too disciplined, and he's too aggressive, and he's made out to be a bad guy who eventually like messes up and somewhat embarrasses himself. So this is that dynamic you see in a movie where there's a strong man and he messes up and he gets like dethroned by the little nerd with the skinny neck who ends up becoming like a superhero and like looks up to his dad and says, oh no, this is the conditioning that you've been through. And you may think right now, oh well, that's just movies, that's just, you know, TV shows. But everything that you see, especially at a young age, deeply influences the kind of man or guy that you become. And if you followed along with me through this video so far, and you drew that little bar that we spoke about, and you put your line of where you are right now closer to the middle, then you can see that the result of everything that you were raised for has led you to a point that you are quite depolarized and you're not as masculine as you should be. Because you totally understand this, and everyone understands this. We should be far more on the right side of the spectrum. We should be far more masculine than we actually are. We haven't even spoke about the war on testosterone yet. Do you know that average healthy levels of testosterone in Western countries is from around 250 nanograms per deciliter to around 950. If you are in this range, doctors will hesitate heavily to prescribe you testosterone. This range is inherently and blatantly sexist. A young man who's 22 years old and his dick doesn't work and he can't focus and he's depressed and he's lethargic and he's got brain fog. He gets out of bed in the morning and he's literally tired straight away, living like the shell of a life that he should be, with no vitality inside of him. That young man has a testosterone score of 260 nanograms per deciliter, and his doctor looks to him and says, oh, you're in the healthy range. Imagine having symptoms of low testosterone. You don't even need to imagine it. You're living that reality right now. I can say with certainty that the man watching this right now, like you, have low testosterone. Now, you might fit into this healthy range, this average range, but if you fit into the average levels of today, that means that your testosterone levels are actually below average of what they should be in the history of mankind. I said this before, and people scrutinized me, these fucking nerds. But if you're in the average range, then you're average. No, because the average range is like a modern day societal construct. If you're in the average, let's say the right middle, 500 nanograms per deciliter, your great grandfather had 2 to 3 times that. If we put you alongside one of those men, they would look like a different species. So by now, after just watching me rant for a few minutes, you either think I'm totally crazy and I'm delusional and I'm dangerous to society, or maybe, just maybe, you're starting to realize that, oh yeah, it does sound really crazy. It does sound kind of dangerous. And he is kind of weird, but he's got a nice beard. And he's wearing a bathrobe, so I can trust it. You're probably by now thinking like, shit, there seems to be some truth into what this guy on YouTube is saying. You already knew, okay, my testosterone's gonna be lower than what it should be. You already knew that, yeah, I'm not that extremely masculine and stuff. But when we ask the question why, which is always important, ask why, it starts to sound quite like a conspiracy theory, like a crazy guy would be talking about, there's a war on testosterone, like the fucking doomsdayer with like the big billboard, like, they're trying to kill our sperm cells, and ding, 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 ding. It sounds fucking crazy what I'm saying. Can you think of another explanation? Honestly, like if you can think of another explanation, please, like, I'm not saying this to farm the algorithm or something, but leave a comment and like start a discussion, because I'd love to hear it. I'm quite open to this. Maybe I'm wrong, but I can't think of a better explanation of why men are so depolarized, lacking masculinity, lacking testosterone, than just a war on masculinity. Conditioning from a very early age that men, that fathers, that masculinity, that strong men, that testosterone is bad for us, that is bad for society. And this is even, again, to talk about the issue of a lack of father figures in the home. Fatherlessness is a huge problem in the modern day, especially in Western countries. Honestly, I'd seem like some crazy misogynist if I went into this rant, and so fuck it, I'm gonna do it. There is an incredible level of support for a woman who does not want to stay with the father of her children. It's a smart financial decision for a woman to divorce. It's actually a smart financial decision. Think about that. It's so rewarded in my country, in the UK, for a woman to just think, oh, well, he's not really, he's kind of lazy now and he doesn't treat me right and stuff, so I can just leave and I'll handle the kids. Because all she's grown up with for the last 20 years is the you go girl, super mom, you can do it all yourself. Women can do anything you can be a single mom, you career mom, you can do it. It sounds horrible, but like, honestly, just because you can manage it doesn't mean that you can or you should. Over 90% of teenage suicides are in a fatherless home. Over 90% of teenage criminality, of ASBOs, antisocial behavior orders are in fatherless homes. Over 90% of drug abuse of teenagers is in fatherless homes. Over 90% of teenagers who go on to be homeless are from fatherless homes. If you can think of some random problem that teenagers will have, I guarantee they are multitude times more likely to happen in a fatherless home. You can literally just go and Google this shit, and it's fucking where I've learned everything from. I'll like cite it if you want, but where I've learned all these like facts. Obviously, I'm not totally accurate. It's not 90%, maybe it's 89, or maybe it's 90. You know what I mean? There's a book called The Boy Crisis, and it goes over this issue of just boys being raised in fatherless homes by single mothers, and with this attitude that, oh well, a single mom is a superhero and she can do anything. No, she can't. She cannot. A single mom cannot raise you in the same way that a mother and a father who are loving can. Now, of course, then, there's other arguments. Oh, well, what if the father's abusive and, should he be taken out? This gets complicated. But it's not that caveat that you really see in modern conditioning, is it? When you think about the movies and TV shows and the general belief of your society, chances are, like, there's this empowering thing for, like, women. Well, you don't need a man. You go, girl. Fathers are being taken out of the home. It's being supported by the government. And so what happens to a little boy who grows up in a fatherless home? Chances are that his mother, his single mother, will reward and praise him and positively reinforce him when he acts in a feminine way. Think about this. A boy is raised in a household with a single mother. Perhaps, just perhaps, there's a small amount of single mothers out there in the world that can take a step back from their own shoes and understand that they need to reward this boy when he does things that actually is unnatural for her. Perhaps. That's a small caveat, right? But for the majority of this household dynamic of a boy without a father figure with a single mother, she's going to have her own biases and opinions and feelings and beliefs, of course, you're right? And so she is going to respond to this boy with those biases, opinions, and beliefs. And so she's going to positively reinforce and praise him for the times that he acts in accordance to her beliefs and emotions and feelings. If this boy acts in quite a masculine, adventurous way, well, that's not very natural for her, is it? And so she'll be like, no, come back, you're going too far. But then if he sits quietly and crosses his legs and plays silently and he shares, well, she's going to like that. She's going to like those feminine traits. And so she's going to praise him for, oh, you're such a well-behaved boy. And you've got to understand that a parent's praise is that's how you became the person you are today.